thought this was interesting. So the Marine reshuffles the F-35 plan and latest aviation plan. The main thing is kind of in the first paragraph. So the Marines operate the F-35B and the F-35C. So the B is the vertical takeoff and landing one. The C is the naval variant.
Wow.
I didn't know they even operated the C.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the big news is they divvy up their order for F-35 between the two models. And so they have now decided we're going to reduce the B model, buy more C models. So originally they're going to buy 353 F-35Bs, but now they're going to buy 280. And the difference is going to more F-35Cs. And this is an abbreviated article, but it also talks a little bit about they're still going to keep 2 Harrier squadrons going. They're going to keep the upgraded F-18s going with the ESA. They're putting the ESA in the legacy jet. And then the other big news, I guess, they're going from 10 jet squadrons to 12, which I know for Air Force guys, like those are tiny numbers, but that's kind of more in line with how the Navy operates. And I just thought it was interesting because we like to bag on Fat Amy, but especially the B model. Like I'm a firm believer in the B model, the vertical takeoff landing one, completely ruined that airplane.
Yes.
I think if the Marines were smart, they would have bought Super Hornet because look, the Marines' mission is to support the troop on the ground with the gun, right? That's everything. They're all about supporting the grunt on the ground. And these, Mover and I have, and you can chime in too, Gono, but like having a 5th gen vertical takeoff and like you're not going to be in the jungle launching your 5th gen fighter to go fight. Now, I do understand the Marines operate off of smaller flat tops, and it is nice to have a fighter capability off there. I get that. But, I would challenge that with, well, in all the years we had the Harrier, how effective was it? Like, in what scenario did we really need it? Because like in World War II, Marines operated expeditionary, right? So, I mean, they would, the grunts would go conquer an island. They would put an airfield on it, and the Corsairs would operate out of that, right? So, why do I think they should have bought the Super Hornet? Mainly the 2-seat Super Hornet was because the FAC-A mission, man. I never did it because I wasn't a Fleet Super Hornet guy, but I had buddies who were Fleet Super Hornet F Squadron guys, and they did the FAC-A mission, right? Which, I mean, dude, you're working with the guys on the ground, guys and gals on the ground, and they're very good at it. And that airplane with the two crew, very effective at it because we used to work with them all the time. They put all their eggs in the F-35 basket, and I think what they're finding out is the extra payload and higher mission readiness of the C model is probably, worth something instead of the, having this crazy vertical takeoff and landing airplane that I think is just ridiculous. But that's what I think. I don't know. Gono, what do you think, man, on their decision to shift like that?
Well, I know we rag on the F-35B model, but I always thought, and maybe you have some perspective on it, but the fact that that big boat is a big target. And I mean, if you had Super Hornets, how would you employ them? How would you move from point A to point B? I think there's a capability where, you have a smaller contingent of, I don't know, what do you call them, but, boats or carriers or smaller carriers.
Boats is good.
Yeah. Is that good? Okay.
That's good.
All right. It gives them more agility, and I thought about that when we were doing this whole agile combat employment, where the Air Force said, "Hey, we probably won't have in a near peer type battle environment. We won't have the ability to have a big base where we park all jets there. We probably have to be more agile, and that's a capability that it brings to the Marine Corps, and obviously Marine Corps to the U.S. So." Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's interesting. I had no idea they had the 35Cs. I thought they were all Bs, and I'm a little surprised by that. But
Mover, what's your take, sir?
I didn't know that either, and it makes me wonder why do we even need them at this point?
The Marines or the F-35, or
why do you? So the whole idea of this thing, right, was we needed a jack of all trades because for whatever reason, we couldn't stand the idea of Marines get what they need, Air Force gets what they need, because it was a joint strike fighter. And then we get to the planning phase and we're like, well, we got to fit a lifting fan and it's got to have a commonality, which is why it's Fat Amy now. Like that's why the thing looks the way it does. And that's why it didn't have lightning protection for a while. And that's why, all of the variants had various issues because they had to have commonality. And so we get to this point and everybody's been saying like you, Gonky, that, hey, dude, what do we really need STOVL? And Gono, I get your point, but Marines through OIF, OEF have been doing exactly what we in the Air Force do. They've been expeditionary. They've been going just like the Air Force does, Balad, Al Assad, wherever.
Yeah.
And they have been putting Hornets there, ground-based. I mean, there are Marines Hornet pilots that have never been to the carrier. Is that a true statement, Gonky? I mean,
all Hornet guys get their initial qual, but yeah, some of them then spend their entire
Right.
career never going back.
Right. So, like they are like, we need this because the Harrier, which was a very small community, is very important to marine aviation, and we put all our eggs in this basket. We spent a whole bunch of money to make it VTOL, STOVL, whatever. And now we get to this point, and they're like, yeah, it turns out this C model's good. And so my argument is, okay, well, why not just have the Navy do it? Navy's got C models.
Yes.
They're on the boat. It's going to be the same boat.
I totally support Marine TAC Air 100%. Because I mean, I just, having worked with them for so long, I get how they think and operate. But you can have Marine TAC Air. You just don't need a 5th gen vertical takeoff machine. The problem is, I think if you look, like the Air Force is going to buy like almost 2,000 of them, right? So I mean, if you look at you ruined an airplane for like the smallest percentage of orders, right? So the B model is going to be the numbers wise least produced. You know what I'm saying?
Most expensive. Yeah.
Most expensive
per unit.
Yeah. So like, you ruined an airplane, arguably, for a very small amount of orders, basically. I would argue that if there was no B model, I bet the Air Force and the Navy version would probably be
like an F4.
Yeah, they might even be the same airplane, right? And then in that case, dude, everything comes down. Cost, right? Simplicity of manufacturing, everything becomes, it becomes a better weapon.
Why do they need the C model?
What do you mean? Why do they need Marine TAC Air?
No. Why do they need the
C
model?
Big wings, right?
Because you can operate that airplane off of carriers, which they do, because we had the snakes on our boats, the Marine TAC Air Hornet Squadron. But then they can also operate them expeditionary, off of, just like they do the D models, right? The Marines, all the D models are, they were shore based, not ship based. So, they can have close air support, and then,
with the C model with the gun pod.
Well, dude, so okay, that's a whole nother thing, right? So you could have a Marine F-35C unit. I personally think they should have the A-10 too, if they're truly into supporting the guy on the ground. But just talking about the F-35, the C model lets them do expeditionary and be operated off a naval carrier, whereas the B model is, in the jungle or on the small flat tops. But almost 11 years Navy, I never did any operations we did other operations with other nuclear powered super carriers, but we never did any operations with the smaller boats, that had Harriers or anything. I don't even know what they were doing. They were out doing small boat stuff, I guess. I don't know. Gono, did you ever do any work with Harriers off the small boats or anything like that?
Never.
Right?
No.
Yeah, the only time I ever saw even those ships was in port.
So just to throw some numbers out here, and this could be wrong. This is just a quick Google. Flyaway cost in 2024 for an F-35, $82 million for an F-35A, $109 million for the F-35B, $102 million for the F-35C.
Yeah, probably because the orders, man. So the Air Force is ordering the most.
Yeah,
exactly. And if you got rid of the B, the A and the C probably would have been basically the same airplane.
And recently, the Navy purchased 17 Block 3 Super Hornets for a cost of $1.14 billion, which is $66 million per aircraft.
Yeah.
So, again, I go back to, why do we need this?
Need what?
Why do they need 5th gen at all?
Yeah, you can argue that fact. I would argue they need 2-seat Super Hornets more than
that's what I'm talking about. We went all through this whole thing about they needed STOVL and 5th gen and all that stuff. Now we said, well, you know what? We don't need as many of that. So why not take the money and get more of the aircraft that they probably do need?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, because
How
like
are
I said,
how are you expeditionary if you have to rely on the Navy and their boats? You know,
well, the way the Marines operate is they'll dedicate certain squadrons to work with the Navy. So they'll be part of the carrier air group. And then there are some that are just, expeditionary. They go, I think they operate on the same base as the Air Force. Now, I don't know how they determine that, Gono. I mean, I think with the Hornet, it was always single seat squadron where could do both. The D model, they wouldn't let the D model out on the carrier because it carried, I think it was a fuel issue, carried less fuel. And the legacy
how about
Hornet was already
the Harrier? Those were dedicated to flat tops, right?
small boats. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But again, man, I never did any exercises with them. I don't know, how do they fit in the whole equation? I don't know. I mean, you could think up a scenario where they would be a player, but kind of like Mover's alluding to, it's like, man, when you look at it like realistically, like, their mission is support the guy on the ground. Okay, how do you
need helicopters for that.
You need helicopters.
Well, with politics, right? If you have you got to get your money in that pot, and the only way to do it is by, the new buzzword is to get 5th gen. If you're going to go to Congress and tell them, hey, we want, another 4th gen platform to support Marines, I don't know if you're going to get that much traction.
Well, the Navy did. They bought 20 Block 3 Super Hornets for 1.3 billion. Like that's what I mean. They did it.
Yeah. When was that? After the F-35 deal was made?
Oh God, dude, this was just now.
I understand.
2024, May of 2020, March of 2024. Navy seals $1.3 billion deal for Block 3 Super Hornets. They bought, which gets them into 2040s. So this last year.
I don't think Lockheed would have allowed that to happen back when they were trying to make the F-35 deal with the DoD.
Therein lies the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Therein lies the problem. We are controlled by the contractors.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Gono. I just, gosh, 15 years ago.
I'm with you. I'm just saying the reason why they wanted the F-35B to happen. They need money, right?
Well, that, and you got to remember the other thing, and it's not the Marines' fault, maybe, but they put all their eggs in that basket thinking that airplane was going to be available roughly 10 years sooner than it was, right? So that's why, when Mover and I did our last dead out of Miramar, is like a Hornet graveyard, right? Because they're flying those legacy jets into the dirt because they should have been replaced by now, and that F-35 is late. The Super Hornet for the Navy was more of a gap filler, really, because it's right, kind of like Gen 4.5. It's not really 5th gen, so